And people have often said to us, well, no one knows me as Michael. I'm Wazza. So in that case, we would put, let's say you're Michael Miller, we would put Miller, Michael, and if you want, we can put Wazza, but it'll be in brackets after your proper name. But you can do that, okay? You'll be amazed at the variations that we get. I had one chap a couple of elections back, he said, my nickname's Tractor. I'm Tractor. Well, we said, well, you can't put Tractor on the ballot paper, but we've since worked it through and we can do what I just said. We could put Tractor in brackets after his Christian name. Very importantly, you will be given a reference number, and you'll also have to select a password, so only you and the returning officer can access your nomination. So when you first go in and you get your reference number, write it down. And write down your password. The number of people ring up and say, I forgot my password. Because if that happens, you have to start the process again. Okay, because we don't know what your password is, and neither will Nikki. But Nikki will be able to, once you tell her your reference number, she'll be able to go in and retrieve that. Okay? Righto, time to move along. As a candidate, you're able to get a free copy of the roll. It's electronic. It's in two forms. One is an alpha list of electors in alphabetical order by surname, and the other is a habitation list. So a lot of candidates use that when they're walking the streets and knocking on doors and so on. So that's a file that can be manipulated. But it's only to be used for electioneering purposes. It's not to be sold. It's not to be used for commercial purposes. If you're a real estate agent or a property developer or something, or a debt collector. Postal voting, I've indicated already that the packages will be lodged progressively with Australia Post from Wednesday the 27th of September in respect of metropolitan councils. If all wards and districts go to election, those 85 postal elections will be sending out just under 1.6 million postal packages. All right, so if a ward doesn't go, obviously we won't be sending it out. There's a couple of local governments are also running referendums at the same time, so we'll be sending those out as well. But as you'd imagine, once we've lodged those packages with Australia Post, we've lost control. And it sometimes takes a while for Australia Post to clear them through. So don't expect that, the packages will be in the letterboxes in Canning on Thursday the 28th. It won't be. And as you may be aware, Australia Post have introduced a two-tier system of regular or priority, and most councils have gone with regular for cost reasons. It still means that most electors will have 2 to 3 weeks to return their package. All return packages come back to us as priority mail, but the outgoing is typically regular. Most people who are going to vote, as you are well aware, voting in local government elections in Western Australia is not compulsory. So you're looking at about a turnout of around 27 to 30% statewide average. Mount Marshall last elections had 85% participation rate. Gosnells had just under 21%. So it varies. The larger urban councils, such as your own, you tend to have lower participation rates. But the people who are going to vote will typically do so in the first few days of receiving their package. So that's when your best efforts in terms of campaigning are done. If you leave your campaigning until a couple of days before Saturday the 21st, which is election day, you've missed the boat. So it's early campaigning is most effective. 2 key rules. As a candidate, you cannot say to the elderly lady who lives down the street, give me your package and I'll drop it in for you. That's illegal, all right? Nor can you say, look, I'll help you fill in the ballot paper. Get someone else to help them fill in the ballot paper. As a candidate, that is an offence under the Act. with a fairly significant penalty. I've talked about the issue of replacement packages already. When the packages come back, the typical processing is we open up the return reply paid envelope, we take out the ballot paper envelope which has a certificate attached to it, we check that certificate, it's got a barcode, we scan the barcode, that marks the elector off the roll. We then remove the certificate from that envelope, separate them. Then we open the ballot paper envelope, take out the ballot papers uninspected and put them into bundles of 50 and put them in a sealed ballot box. And that's what's supplied to Nikki around midday on the Saturday for her to get ready to count later in the evening or at some stage in the afternoon. So it's still a secret ballot, and as I said, the certificate is removed separately, and that's done at our central processing centre, which is in Northbridge in Perth, at the Northbridge Centre, corner of Beaufort Street and James. Nikki will then process any packages which have been handed in here, up to and including, and we will then add those to the ones that we've sent her from return mail, and that's what she'll count on the night. So I'm being given a wind-up, so I need to very quickly if you get elected, or if you get 5% of the formal vote, you'll get your $80 back. Last thing, this is really important. This is a trap for young players, so to speak. If you produce any electioneering material that you have, whether it's personalised or just with all the other mail that gets posted, stuck into people's letterboxes, it must be authorised. So if you are printing it at home on a computer, you will need to say authorised and printed by Mary Smith, 16 Wombat Crescent, whatever. Right? It's got to be a physical address, it can't be a PO box. And if you have it commercially printed under the legislation, a bit of carryover of days gone by, but you need to have the name of the printer and the address of the printer. Sounds a bit strange, but that's what the Act requires. You need to ensure that anything you put out is authorised. If you create a website, if you create a Facebook page, authorise the landing page, the home page. You don't have to authorise every single page, nor do you have to authorise every iteration that you might be having in a conversation or something, but the landing page should be authorised. Electoral offences, obviously bribery and undue influence are particularly important ones, but there are a number of those. You can appoint scrutineers to view the count and to represent you. You can't be on the floor of the count itself as a candidate, but you can appoint a scrutineer to monitor the counting process. I won't go into any detail, I've run out of time here, but there is a gift register. It's maintained by Arthur as the CEO. The local government here can give you further information about your obligations under the electoral provisions of the Act about receipt of gifts. But one thing I will say, if you're running as a candidate, the gift period started in April. Okay, it's a 6-month window leading up to the election. If you get a gift from someone and they were going to give you that gift anyway, it was a birthday present, it just happened to be during your running as a councillor, a candidate as a council elections, then you don't have to declare that, but it's relating to your campaign. As I said, this is a longer presentation than normal allocated here, so look, I'm going to close there. If you've got any questions at the end, then by all means, I'm happy to take them on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. There is a lot to take in. So this isn't the only opportunity for you to familiarise yourself with it. As said earlier, there is a thumb drive that you'll receive. Also, we've put together a package as well for all of you to take away tonight. I'd now like to call on the Deputy Mayor, Lindsay Holland, to come forward and talk about his experiences as an elected member with the city, then Councillor Jacobs and then Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Arthur. Good evening, everybody. Look, I won't go through a lot of the stuff that's already gone through. I think it's a waste of time. I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience. I think one of the most important things, if you're thinking of coming onto council, is to do it for the right reason. It's not to do it for money, as the Mayor said. That's the wrong reason. It's not to do it for anything else, but because you want to serve your community. You had a look at some of the stats up there. I think it was 28% of the respondents said community was the first and most important thing. If you went through that list on there, nearly everything on there also spelled out community involvement in some way or another. You also got to enjoy what you're doing. I actually enjoy being on the council. And I always promise my wife the time I stop enjoying it is the time I'll step down. You've got to do it for the right reason. There is a lot of work, which was touched on before. There is a lot of work. But it's more than the work is actually the reading. There is a lot of reading to do. And sometimes you've got to read things twice to have it sink through. There's a lot of references made to acts and this and that sort of stuff, which you've got to think, well, what the heck does that mean? You've got to do some research on what does that mean. You've got to work out how, well, if I do that, if I vote for that way, what is it going to mean to other people? And what's it going to mean if I vote the opposite way? It was also suggested that you have to be prepared to influence people and be prepared to be influenced by people. That's when the debate happens at council chambers. Before that, you have the agenda briefings and other information sessions where you get your information and you can come up and formulate your own idea. The CEO was also right. Once you get elected in a ward here, as opposed to, well, Gosnells was mentioned before, Gosnells doesn't have wards, but we do. So if you're going to stand for a Beelia ward, a Beeloo ward, that's where you target your advertising or promotion or whatever, because they're your electors. But once you get elected, you will actually represent everybody. You obviously you've probably got a little bit more interest on your own because that's your own turf, like mine's Beelia, which is where I live, which is Willerton, but it doesn't stop me actually going completely right outside that to the whole of the city of Canning. And especially if you've been the Deputy Mayor, it's even more important. I mean, being the Deputy Mayor, I've had to go to Canberra and to talk about the city of Canning as a whole. A Canberra politician doesn't give a damn about my ward. He's concerned about the city as a whole. So the only thing I would be prepared to spend a bit of time, make sure you've got some family support, do it for the right reasons, that you want to help the community. That's the most important thing that you can do. Do it for the right reason. I wish you all the best of luck. It is a great thing. It is a great community service, and I hope you do enjoy it. And I think you will if you do it for the right reason. And just be prepared. The Mayor said 3 or 4 nights a week. Yes, sometimes it has happened, as the CEO has alluded to. I think this week we've got tonight and Thursday night. But there are other things that you might need to attend to. For example, the Mayor and I, every time they have a citizenship ceremony, we go to that. There's a lot of other functions that you might have to do or you might not have to do. So be prepared to go to community events on a Saturday or Sunday, because the community, they voted for you. They want to see you out there. Now, you just don't go to a community event in Mason Ward that's got a barbecue at the local park. You go to the community event that's down on the Rossmine foreshore, which is the New Year's Eve fireworks, or whatever, or in Canning Vale, which is Nicholson Ward. You don't limit it to your own thing. You go to everything. You've got to be out there. You've got to work. You've got to be seen there that you're representing, you're not only just the people who elected you, but the actual greater city of Canning. Now, Arthur alluded to, and I'll just finish up now because we've got a couple more people and everyone wants to go home. When he gave his little talk, he alluded to what the city of Canning's got and what we're striving to do. If you get elected, you're actually going to be coming onto council with the city of Canning at a great time, because we are progressing at a great rate of knots, something that hasn't been done in the city for many, many years. We've got a great future ahead of us. Our finances are very solid. The council is in a great position. We've got a great mayor here who leads by example. We've got a great, sorry, I'll take that back then, shall I? We've got we've also, the councillors that are staying here and not to be re-elected, on one of them, are also great. We're all on here for the same reason, that we want to see the City of Canning thrive and be as best we can. The City Centre project is a great thing. The Bentley Regeneration project, some of the things we're doing out in Canning Vale are great, and all over the place. So you'll be joining at a really good time. You're actually very lucky, because we did all the work before you got here, of course, but you're actually very lucky. So I wish you all the best, and nominate and stand. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Jessie Jacobs, please.
Okay, I don't know if I can match that great performance, but I'll just do a few other points. I've written a few notes down here so I don't ramble away. First and foremost, I think the common misconception is that people will ask you, so how many hours is it a month? And you'll be like, oh, look, I don't know, it's quite a lot. And they're like, is it just once a meeting a month? It's obviously more than that. So I'd hate for you to sort of think, well, you know, once a month I'll come in for 4 hours and that's done. That would be incorrect. Also, second point is I think you need to be robust. Don't take the debate personally. Obviously, you buy into an argument, or you'll think, well, you know, you've convinced yourself that this is the right way, but other people might see it differently. Some councils, and I think we've been good here for the last 2 years, is that we don't make it personal. So I might go down, or I might be moving a motion and it crashes and burns. And I'll be like, damn, that councillor, he sabotaged it. It's more than that. And if you get to that level, I think you're missing the point about how local councils work. We're here as individuals, you're not here sent from a party, and you argue the benefits on the night. So don't take it personally. You win some, you lose some. You just got to get back up and keep going on. Ward, Deputy Mayor's already alluded to that, but you represent Canning foremost. So I'd hate for some, we don't do it here, but some people and some other councillors sort of do this ward politics thing where it's divide and conquer, where my ward is everything, and if I don't get it in my ward, then I don't support it. You know, you've got to be a bit bigger than that. Tax. The pay's okay, but don't get into the trap of just taking it all. And when the tax man says, well, you know, I want a third of that, you don't have it. So it's a bit of a trap that I got. A few of the councillors learnt the first year that actually all the money they give you, the tax department's going to say, well, hang on a minute, I want my 30% or 34% because it's combined with your other salary. Election promises. Don't say things that you can't commit to or don't want to do. It's just, some people say, well, you know, I'll get in and I'll say, if you vote for me, what will I do? Well, what do you want me to do? And I'll do that. You know, it's more than that. And, you know, it might happen here, it might happen to other places, but I think we owe it to the confidence that people have invested in the democratic process, not to take the cheap option and say, look, vote for me, and I'll give everyone no rates. It's not achievable. Zero. Vote for me and there'll be no rates ever again. You know, it doesn't work like that. Be passionate. Have your heart in it. I think Deputy Mayor's obviously alluded to that. You can tell the people that are passionate and the people that aren't passionate, because the people that aren't passionate be like, damn, have we got council on Tuesday? Oh, what is the excuse I'm going to use this time? You've got to be there, and the community has placed a great amount of trust in you to make the right decisions, because they're going to be busy with their family, they're going to be busy with work, they can't be here, they don't have all the information. You have the information, they have entrusted you. And that leads me to my next point, is don't let the position go to your head. I've seen, and I'm not saying it has happened, but I've seen happen certainly in some places, and sometimes more in federal or state, is you meet the guy, and Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith is a great candidate, very approachable, fantastic, gets elected, 2 weeks later, we don't know where they've gone. Is the power goes to their head? Do they change as a person? I think it's really important to stay the same person that you were before you got the job. And look, sometimes it's easy to get caught up with it and sort of tell yourself, oh, I'm councillor. Councillor sounds good, but really the community has entrusted you to look after their affairs for them. And be approachable. I think it's really important. If someone rings you, and look, the psychology is they probably just want to talk to you. And it's easy to shut them down. It's easy to give them all the answers, but I think a lot of the time they just want you to listen to them. And so I had a gentleman ring me up last week and he kept talking for 15 minutes straight off. And I felt like saying, well, you know, what's the problem? But I think it's sometimes important just to... I read a book recently written by Richard Branson, and he says, the reason why you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth is because you use the ears more than you speak. And I think that's good, generally in good advice. Last point, and I'll leave... it's quite a long night for you guys tonight, is I did the Diploma of Governance. That was 10 units. The city will give you an allowance for educational purposes, and you can choose to do it. I did it with Welga, did it 10 units. It was quite an investment of time, so 10 days plus homework, but I thought it was quite good. So I think if you want to do it, give it a red hot run. If you don't get up, it's not the end of the world. There's always next time. But it's a rough and tumble game. Give it your best shot. I thank you all for being here because, in essence, we're all buying into the Australian democratic model. And I know Aussies pay it off a lot, but trust me, I've lived in the country for a long time, that there is no opportunity for democratic engagement. So I'll leave it like that, and I wish you all the well in your campaigning. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. And now Councillor Christine Cunningham.
Good evening, folks. Thanks very much for coming. I'll keep it brief and just add some comments that may not have been said before. I'm one of the 4 female councillors here in the City of Canning, and I'd love to see at the next election that we reach gender parity. I'd love to see, as we have now, a great diversity in ages and certainly a really great mix of cultural representatives. So I see that we have that today in the audience, and I wish you all the best of luck. I have found it an extreme privilege to be a councillor here in the City of Canning, and thus far there's no question that I think that I have learned more and gained a lot in being a councillor, and I'm doing my best to pay that back to the City of Canning. But we do get extensive training. I have learned a great amount about how to be good at governing, rather than getting involved in the operational positions that I'm more familiar with in my work. I'm a full-time worker, I'm a mum, I have all those hats, I think. I don't break dance, but I do dance. And it is possible to juggle your life. It does mean that you don't have an extensively separate social life, but if you're willing to give up some of that, then I think that it is well worth your time. And if you do have things that you'd like to change in the City of Canning, then I really hope that you step up. A couple of pieces of advice in terms of campaigning. It is not compulsory in elections, so what does happen is that the people who are really interested are the ones who are going to vote. So if you are going to door knock, you're going to be unsuccessful in quite a few of the people who couldn't care less that you're knocking on their door. It might be better to make sure that you're very familiar with the Resident and Ratepayers Association, the local community groups, the sporting groups, the religious organisations, all of the active areas of your community, and they're the people and the groups to target. Make yourself known now, get involved, and that's really going to help you in your candidacy. And if you don't think that you have the capacity, if you're not sure that you have the experience, please give it a try anyway, because there is so much support to help you, and everybody who wants to have a go, I just really encourage you to do so. Thank you very much.
I think we have a fantastic group of councillors, and listening to each one of the councillors talking, and I know that a number aren't talking tonight, aren't here, some aren't here, and some are here and not speaking, and there's a reason for that. But listening to those words, it certainly inspires me in terms of the future of the city of Canning. And they're words from the heart, I can tell you that. We're now open for questions. So I'll be up here to receive them, and then I'll deflect them to the appropriate individual. But by all means, ask a question. What I do ask, though, is that if you do have a question, put your hand up. We have a microphone because you wish to record the question. And if the mayor or the deputy mayor or a councillor wishes to respond, you'll need to come up here and respond.
Chris as well might.
Sorry?
Chris might have questions as well. They might like to stand up.
Oh yeah, it isn't just of me, it's a question of, our special guests too, by the way. Okay, any questions? Oh yes, we've got two hands straight up, great.
Good evening, my name is Yasso. My question may be to the Electoral Commission, perhaps. When is the campaigning we can start as a candidate? Or what is the time, or when is that somebody can start?
As was suggested by one of the councillors, you can start campaigning at any time. There's no set time to campaigning. From a legal perspective, the election notice that will appear next week calling for nominations is, in a legal sense, the commencement of the election period. But there is no reason why you can't be out doing what was just said, mixing with the community, indicating that I intend to run as a councillor, as a candidate, I should say, and starting to promote yourself for that purpose.
As long as it's properly certified.
Yes. In terms of what Nikki is just saying, in terms of any materials, leaflets, letterbox drops that you do, make sure that you authorise them, as I indicated before. Thank you.
Just one more clarification on the same topic. Because until the nomination is closed, you're not a candidate, am I right?
No.
Yeah.
Once the nominations have closed, there might be 3 or 4 people who have nominated as candidates.
Yep.
So you're a candidate up to and including election night.
Yeah.
Okay?
So your materials cannot mention that you're running.
No, you can. Yes, that's what democracy is all about. You can tell people I'm a candidate and my name will be appearing on the ballot paper, and that ballot paper you'll receive in the mail. That's not a problem.
Okay. Because when I rang the Electoral Commission, they mentioned to me you cannot say you're a candidate until the 14th of September. So you can say now you're intent candidate.
Yes.
So that's,
Yes.
I suppose, what is do's and don'ts,
Okay.
whether do you have a list or do you
I
want to
see what
provide?
mean. You can
that's-
certainly say
Thank you.
right now that I'm intending to run as a candidate. All right? In terms of being a formal candidate, once nominations have closed, at that point you've become a formal candidate if your nomination's been accepted. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Prince.
Bill Prince of Wilson. I had a couple of questions, or understandings basically. I understand there are bylaws about placing things on or advertising within the city, and there's a time at which that advertising can start. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with the specific local laws in relation to electioneering. I know that you can't place any electioneering material on public assets. So that would be on medians. If it was on private residence, of course you can. But my understanding is, unless our local law is different from others, that you actually can't place them on public assets.
Yes, I understand that the city bylaws restrict the length of time that you can actually have the advertisements in place.
Yep.
So that needs to be pointed out. The second understanding, I assume, is the length of your tenure, if elected, will be 4 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
My name is Elson. I'd like to, the job seems to be very demanding, and it may be more than a full-time job. We got the package, but I just want to know, is there any annual leave?
Any, sorry?
Annual leave.
Well, first of all, it actually, it's not a job in the stricter sense of a job. You're not employed by the City of Canning. You're elected as a councillor to represent the City of Canning. Councillors can have leave from their duty as councillors. If you intend to have leave, you have to be very careful that you do not miss 3 consecutive council meetings. Otherwise, your position of councillor falls you're disqualified. So if you intend to take leave of consecutive 3 council meetings, you need a leave of absence from council, and that's voted on by council. However, you can go on a holiday and miss a council meeting or miss various council forums. My advice to you is that if you are away, it's always important to inform me and the Mayor that you intend to be away from your duties as a councillor, because materials can be sent to you. Sometimes it can be dropped off at your residence, and the objective is to not compromise any information that would be distributed that may be of a confidential nature. But most of the stuff we send you is now by electronic means to the hub, as I mentioned earlier. So you're not restricted from taking leave. Says Councillor Cunningham.
It's also my understanding that we don't have an ordinary council meeting in the month of January.
Correct.
So from about Christmas time all through January is a great time to take quote-unquote annual leave.
However, sometimes the CEO can be a bit sneaky and put in place a special council meeting. But if you can miss that, because that doesn't count as one of those meetings that you're required to attend. But sometimes a special council meeting is called for an urgent matter. But Councillor Cunningham is right. It's very unlikely that we would put a meeting on in January. It tends to be the holiday period for a lot of us in local government land as well as outside of local government land.
Council meeting is once a month, is it at least? Or
Yeah, the council meeting's on the 3rd Tuesday of the month.
Every month.
The first Tuesday of the month we have a strategic briefing meeting, which we brief councillors on specific issues that we're dealing with. They might be around policy, it might be around local laws, or any major project. The second